gather round this table, we remember and proclaim, Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. There's nothing to fear and everything to gain, and so we gather here to remember and proclaim.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Midweek Rewind. My name is Matt. I'm excited to be joined by Pastor Brent again. Thanks for those of you who are tuning in with us. We're excited to spend a little bit of time together. And we've got some fun things to talk about since it is Holy Week and Easter's coming up. We've got some cool things to talk about today. So thanks for watching. And again, if you're live, we would love to talk with you. So if you have any questions or comments, just go ahead and type those in. We'll keep an eye on that. We'd love to talk with you if you have anything you'd like to chime into the conversation. And if you're watching later, we're glad to have you with us too. So thanks for spending some time with us. So Brent, how you doing today?
Doing good. It's a beautiful day.
It is.
I love Kansas. Sometimes I get in trouble with what I say, but sometimes I say, this is why people move to Kansas, for the 5 days a year like this.
Yep.
You know, but it's a beautiful time of year. These have been beautiful days, and yeah, Easter. So yep. I'm thankful. Doing good.
Are you like me, where when you think back to the coronavirus situation, I couldn't tell you if we've been doing this for 4 days, 30 days, 50 days. Like, I have no sense of how long this has been happening. Like, are you in some kind of weird time vortex that I'm in?
And it's what day of the week is it too? Yeah. Because we all live in routines. I don't care if we like change or not, but we have routines, and there's just no more routine. Well, for a lot of us. Yeah. And so it just, you lose your anchor points.
Yes.
So it's still surreal, even though it's been X number of weeks of shelter at home and social distancing and all that. It's still, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it should stay this way. It's still surreal.
Yeah. I think it's starting to feel more and more normal, weirdly, but at the same time, nothing's normal. It's just a weird, I don't know. I feel like we're all just in some weird Twilight Zone situation. But so speaking of that, Brent, you and I were talking earlier, and I think you and I have kind of had a similar journey on this whole coronavirus thing, where at first we weren't really sure what to think about it, and things keep changing so quickly. So today, this week, where are you at with this whole thing? How are you feeling, and how is it affecting your life, and just how are you doing these days?
Well, yeah, we were talking earlier, and I guess it's a moment of transparency for me. I mean, I hope I'm always transparent and honest, but yeah, all through this season at various times, I've had, I guess at different stages, a little bit of eye rolling. So like when this thing first came out and everyone's getting alarmed, I kind of roll my eyes like, come on, relax. It's not that big a deal. Mm-hmm. 70,000 people or whoever die from the flu every year. Like, relax. I mean, I had a little eye roll, but then you gain some more information, or maybe you talk to a trusted friend, and they shed some light on this, or they convince you to, so then you kind of step into it. And then there's the next eye rolling stage of, okay, social distancing. Mm-hmm. So I'm embarrassed to say it, but I just had a little bit of resistance or eye rolling. Then, the shelter at home thing, or the grocery stores, or everything shut down, or school. And it's just interesting, the pride journey, or the humility journey, or the human nature journey, to kind of roll your eyes. Have you done any of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you.
Different stages.
Yeah. With every new thing, I just couldn't believe it. It just seemed like it was not maybe necessary. I felt like people were kind of giving into fear and hysteria, but I'm with you that, like, okay, maybe this is every new thing. I'm like, okay, I guess this is how it is. And it's hard. Like, you and I have zero medical health training, right? Like, we have no idea. And even the people I see on TV, the biggest experts in the world, they don't know what to do either, and that their opinions change every day. And so it's just hard to know what's happening, and it's a little bit uneasy to not know how long this is going to go. And it's just a weird thing we've never experienced before. And I think we're all handling it differently, but actually similarly, that we're just trying to do the best we can with everything we know each day.
Yeah, and taking the risk of hoping that I don't sound like I'm bragging, because that's the farthest thing from what I'm wanting to do. But I'm grateful that either I have enough humility or I'm soft enough of heart to like change my mind.
Yeah.
And these days I got a little tub of, generic Clorox wipes, and I'm wiping doorknobs, and I'm,
Yeah.
I am taking the precautions, and I bought in. But the process has been interesting for me.
Yeah.
To see my points of resistance. And I know by personality, I'm kind of it'll all work out. Don't get so wound up about it. By personality, I'm just that way.
Right.
There is, though, Matt, a spiritual, there's a spiritual parallel to this. And I think there are lots of people out there who roll their eyes when we say you ought to read your Bible, you ought to do this, you ought to go to church, you ought to witness, you ought to. And they see us as walking around in the hazmat suits, overreacting to what should happen. And I understand that spiritually, we all have points of resistance to what people say we should do to stay healthy spiritually.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are all of these points of resistance physically with COVID-19 to stay healthy and protect yourself and experience life. You need to do these things.
Right.
Well, it's the same with our spiritual life. There are things we should do for our spiritual hygiene. And honestly, we're all going to see that a little differently, but I shouldn't look at the Christian who says, this is how I'm going to do it. And say they're a slacker or they're wearing a hazmat suit and they're overreacting.
Yeah.
I need to show grace, and I need to say, what do I do spiritually to not be an eye roller at the things that are either in the Bible or people that I respect are telling me that I need to do to stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's true. And that's way to pull an object lesson out of current events, Brent. Way to go.
All right. Hey, it's Holy Week, Matt. What are we going to talk about?
It's Holy Week. And so the grand transition I had planned before you ruined it there, Brent. But obviously everything's different. We can't what we would normally do during Holy Week is kind of thrown off a little bit. And so one thing I was thinking earlier this week is that we're unfortunately not going to have our worship at the cross service that we typically have on Holy Week. And just the way that the sermon series is kind of wrapped together, we're not actually, as a church, we haven't really talked about the actual week. Like we haven't talked about the triumphant entry and the Palm Sunday stuff, or the what happened this day, what happened this day, what happened this day of Holy Week. And that's usually, we do something like that usually with our Easter Holy Week stuff. And so I thought today we could spend a little bit of time on that. Usually we spend some time talking about the previous week's sermon and kind of going a little bit deeper. But again, just because of a weird thing that we're in, you and I actually did that last week. So last week's Midweek Rewind, we talked about doubt and how that played into the Easter story a little bit, but then how that affects our lives and our church lives. So if you didn't watch last week, you can watch last week's Midweek Rewind, or of course you can watch the sermon. But since we've kind of talked about that already, I thought this would be a good chance for us to dive into Holy Week a little bit and talk about the last few days of Jesus' life. And so Brent, you and I talked about this, and you typed up this very official document walking through the last week of Jesus' life, pretty much everything that happened that week that we have documented, at least. And I don't know how you feel, Brent, but as I was reading this, I was like, okay, which of these are significant because it was the last week of Jesus' life, and which ones are just, this happened to happen that Tuesday? We kind of put a lot of weight on Holy Week, as if it's almost like we expect everything that happened to have some really significance. But maybe some of this just happened because he was walking along on a Monday and this thing happened. So it's hard to know where that balance is. What do you think about that? Do you think some of this stuff was divinely planned for this, or was that just some of this was just what happened that week?
So yeah, when you read the Gospels, Jesus did a lot of miracles, but there are some that just seem weird. Like, why?
Right.
It was either an odd thing, and you and I were talking, and it fits into this idea of, was this significant? Why did this happen on Monday? Jesus, that last Holy Week, he and the disciples spent the first 4 or 5 nights in Bethany. They think at Lazarus' home, okay? But they travel into Jerusalem during the day and go back to Bethany. So on Monday, this is right after the triumphal entry, Jesus and his disciples are walking back into Jerusalem, 5 miles or less from Bethany. And Jesus, this is one of the weird miracles, at least on Brent's list. And you're wondering, like, does this have added significance because it happened, 4 days before he was arrested? But on that Monday, he was walking back into Jerusalem, and from a distance, he sees a fig tree that's full of leaves. Now, this happened in the spring, and the promise of a tree with leaves is figs. Okay? Now, it was too early to really have a full, head of leaves on your tree. But Jesus nonetheless saw a tree it was full of leaves. It was an early bloomer. And so he reasonably expected it to have figs, because that's how fig trees work. You got leaves, you're going to have figs that are growing at the same time. And so he gets up to the tree, and it shouldn't have leaves to start with, but it does. And so he looks at it and he says, hey, you don't have any figs, and he curses the tree.
Yeah.
Now, what are the words that come to mind, when you see this miracle? For me, it's impulsive. It's reactive. It's like unnecessary. Okay. But Jesus did it. Okay. So they go in, they spend some time in Jerusalem. They come back to Bethany. The next morning, they go back into Jerusalem, and sure enough, the tree is withered. Okay. And the disciples point this out, and then Jesus talks about faith. Okay. So it's just like an odd miracle. Like, are we supposed to, and that's one lesson. Jesus said, hey, if you have faith, you can curse a fig tree and it'll die. I mean, it just seems odd, but faith is one lesson. Another lesson that I think we ought to learn from this, and again, the significance of it or whatever, but hey, fruitlessness is bad. The third lesson is you promise something that you don't deliver on. Okay. So between those last two, I'm thinking this is kind of interesting. So Jesus is in his last week, and he's wanting people to know that if they promise fruit, they should deliver.
Okay.
And fruitlessness is bad. Like, I'm about to leave. Remember this. And so my mind went to John 15:8, and it says, Jesus said, my Father is glorified when you produce much fruit and prove that you're my disciples. And so this tree claimed to be a follower of Christ, okay, but didn't have any fruit. And Jesus said, not good, I'm judging you. I mean, I'm cursing you. Yeah. We all look like, you and I, Matt, from a distance, we're just eye candy, you and I.
Oh, absolutely.
If people are far enough away,
people are watching right now,
they might think we're good looking. But the closer you get to someone, you see their, reality. From a distance, this tree promised to be a follower. Have some fruit. And Jesus got up to it and said, hey, that's no good. So, yeah, that's my best shot, Matt. That it seems like a weird miracle. Yeah, teaches us faith. But for me, the bigger lessons are God just does not like fruitlessness. And again, Jesus was condemning the Pharisees for no fruit, and then John 15:8, I just said it, it glorifies God when we produce much fruit and prove, we can actually prove that we're followers of Christ. People can come up and see the leaves. We go to church. We don't yell at our family. We have the outer like leaves that kind of give a promise of being a follower of Christ. But if they actually moved in with us, would they see fruit? I mean, that's the lesson for me.
Yeah.
That's the lesson. Hey, can I give a bonus tree verse?
Yeah, please do.
So there's a story in Luke 13. And it's another fig tree. And Jesus told this parable about a farmer who had a fig tree that hadn't been producing fruit for 3 years that should have been producing. And so he shows up on year 3 and he tells his hired hand, hey, this tree is worthless. It's not producing any fruit. It's wasting the soil. So chop it down. Let's let the nutrients go to something that's going to deliver.
Okay.
And the hired hand said, well, hey, could we give it another chance? Let me dig up the soil around the tree, like fresh, loosen it up, and let me put on some manure. Let's fertilize this baby. And let's see if it produces fruit. And next year you can cut it down. It's nice that, Jesus didn't give a second chance to that fig tree that he cursed. But then in Luke 13, in Luke 13, he says, I'm all about second chances.
Yeah.
That's not like I'm impatient. You should be producing fruit. Like the farmer was right. The tree is worthless. But the hired hand said, let's give it another chance. Okay. So for you who are listening and are in business or you're employed, you know this reality. What do you do when an employee isn't producing fruit? You don't even have to be a boss. You can look at your coworkers and you say, they're not producing fruit. And the dilemma in the workplace is, how many years do we go? We dump fertilizer on people, right? That's called a work improvement plan, right? We set goals. We put them on probation. We say, you're going to have to do this or else. And so some bosses are curse the fig tree round 1. I don't want to waste my time. This guy, this lady, they're not going to change. So they do the Mark 11 that Jesus cursed the fig tree. Other people, they say, let's dump some fertilizer on this person.
Yeah.
Okay. Spiritually, so that's in the workforce. We deal with it all the time, don't we? We're looking at it. Are they producing fruit? We're paying them to produce fruit. Okay. And then spiritually, it's the same way. How patient should we be for someone to break a bad habit? They're not producing fruit of righteousness.
Right.
So anyway, it's just food for thought. So all that comes out of the weird miracle on Monday and Tuesday of Holy Week where Jesus cursed this tree.
Yeah.
And certainly it's the idea that he expects fruit from Christians.
Yeah. That's good. There's a lot of good lessons in there that I did not get when I read that story. Because I'm like you, when the first read, it's like, that seems really random and weird. So good job for pulling that out. That's really good. And apparently there were a lot more fig trees back then. I don't see a whole lot of fig trees around Wichita.
Yeah. Hey, have you ever met a fig tree farmer?
No.
I have.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh.
So in Fresno, California, they have fig tree farms. And one of my best friends, his wife, grew up on a fig farm.
Wow.
There you have it. Right
There you
there
go.
in Fresno, California.
Another Fun fact for your Thursday, everybody. All right, so I want to make sure we spend some time on Thursday of Holy Week, Maundy Thursday, because today's Thursday, so today's Maundy Thursday. One quick thing is, I think it's kind of interesting. Again, in the Bible, there's nothing written about Wednesday of Holy Week. We really don't know what Jesus did that day. We have a pretty good idea of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but Wednesday is kind of a mystery. We don't know what he did that day. Just kind of an interesting thing about the week. So today, Brent, has historically been called Maundy Thursday. Tomorrow's Good Friday. And I think certain like denominations and faith traditions use that language more than others. So what is Maundy Thursday? And can you give us just a recap? What all happened that day?
Yeah. So Maundy Thursday is the day that Jesus was arrested. On that day, I'm looking at my notes, he sent a couple of disciples to prepare the Passover meal. We don't know if they rented a room or there was a friend, if the guys catered it out or they were good cooks, but there was a traditional Passover meal and they got the whole thing ready. That's the story of Jesus coming and the Last Supper, the story of no one doing the right thing of bending down to wash feet, and he ended up doing that. It's also during the meal that he, called out Judas, and Judas left. Mm-hmm. He called out Peter, "You're going to deny me." Then they end up taking the long walk, the slow walk, I should say, to the Garden of Gethsemane. He prays, they fall asleep, and he's arrested. So Maundy Thursday is that sad day. Now, Good Friday, and again, how we land on names, I wonder if it's Good Friday because of what it accomplished, or it used to be God's Friday and an O was added. But whatever the case, it's called Good Friday. And that's, of course, when Jesus was crucified. He was on trial from about midnight Friday morning all through the night, crucified, nailed at 9, and he died at 3. So one of the things you and I talked about on this Thursday and Friday was the role of emotions. And I jotted a few thoughts down. Emotions reflect our inner world. We're sad, we're happy. And they drive us. Emotions can carry us. So you're really, really angry, and you'll go to, your behavior follows your emotions. Mm-hmm. If you're really heartbroken, you'll go to any length to apologize or make things right. So emotions are our inner interpretation of the world, and emotions actually drive our behavior. Okay. It's true that emotions aren't all accurate. I can have a little conversation with you, interpret it a certain way, and be really happy because of what was happening. But you may be deeply offended by something I say. Or I worry if I've hurt your feelings, and so I'm all sad, when actually it's not. So emotions aren't always accurate. Mm-hmm. Emotions always drive us some way, Mm-hmm. In Acts 2, it says they were cut to the heart. Mm-hmm. Is that Peter preached? And says they were cut to the heart. There are so many examples of people being emotionally overcome, and they fell on their faces. What is worship in heaven? And you read Revelation, it's extremely emotional. And I think, Matt, that God wants us to feel the events of Thursday and Friday and Saturday. That we're robbing ourselves or God of this experience. We say it's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He rose 3. Really, they've calculated how many hours. It was parts of 3 days, but Jesus died at 3:00 on Friday afternoon, and he rose before dawn on Sunday morning. So count the hours, you know, it was at 6 a.m. on Sunday. So, but they, with integrity, they say 3 days later, okay, because it was the label of Friday, the label of Saturday, the label of Sunday. But however many hours that was, God wants us to feel this. Now, Matt, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, emotionally expressive are you? It's very subjective. Like, you display your emotions, you feel really happy, you feel really sad, or you're pretty steady?
I think I'm pretty steady. I have a lot of emotions, but I think outwardly I'm fairly steady.
Yeah. But you wouldn't call yourself stoic. Like a stoic person, they always look the same and they never really smile a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm stoic, but I don't go around crying or jumping for joy. I'm somewhere in the middle.
And I would say I'm a little more emotional than you are.
Probably. Yep.
Maybe the intensity of my feelings, but certainly in the expression. I have one good friend. He says, Brent, I just don't feel. I mean, he's not a robot. He was saying that to send a message to me.
Yeah.
But my encouragement to myself and you, Matt, and folks that are listening, is can we just let emotion do something to us? I don't think that, I mean, half of the Gospel of John is about the last week of Jesus' life. I don't think we have the detail of Jesus' arrest and him looking at Judas and say, do what you must do, my friend. And he calls him friend. We don't let the emotion of that, or of Peter grabbing a sword and slicing off an ear, or we don't let the reality of being chained and flogged and the strips of leather with pieces of bone and glass, and it's gouging Jesus' back and ripping his flesh off, and the crown of thorns and the mocking. They beat him and they pulled out his beard. We don't let the happy emotion of the resurrection really hit us. And I guess my hope is that whether you're stoic or middle of the road or more expressive, whether you feel, can we just not rob ourselves of the experience of the feeling, of the emotion, of it should drive us to see the love and the commitment and the perseverance and the stunning gift that this is. If we only read this cognitively, we are not getting the good news.
Yeah.
You see, we should, to a degree, feel the good news. And the events of Thursday and Friday, it has to hit us. And we have to open ourselves to that. It means spending some time and actually stopping.
Yep. Yeah. And, Easter's the big holiday, and Easter's the really good news. And it's, the day that we all focus on. But I think you're right that if we just celebrate Easter without remembering Thursday and Friday, it's not as powerful. Like if you don't remember the reality that led to the good news doesn't feel as good as it probably should. And we'll never understand the combination of Jesus' humanity and divinity. Like we'll never understand that. But just, things that when I read through your little document that you prepared here, there were things that just stuck out to me that, like, on Friday, he had 6 trials before 9 a.m.
Yeah. So he was arrested around midnight, and he was first taken to Annas, and then the Sanhedrin, and then the Romans, and then Pilate, and then Herod, and then back to Pilate. There were 6, they call them trials, or we could generically say, yeah, he was just put on trial all night. Yeah. But the trial lasted from midnight to 7 or 8 in the morning, and then was the long walk up to Golgotha. Right. It took them 30 minutes to get Jesus down on the cross, nail him. So he was on trial all night long, and there were 6 specific points. And so some people call them the 6 trials. of Jesus.
But even that, so he had, this had to be an emotional and frustrating night with his best friends the night Thursday. Sleep trials before 9 a.m. all night, and then the torture begins.
Yeah.
I mean, just again, we don't really understand God. Jesus was God and human, but he was human. He had to be exhausted. And he had to be heartbroken from his friends, and then they started beating his body. And so it's just, I'm glad that you provided this for me, just so we could talk about it today, and just the reminder of what that week was like for Jesus. And again, we sometimes breeze through all that just to get to the happy Easter story, but I think taking a minute to remember the rest of it is important.
Well, yeah, and the sadness of Thursday and Friday should hit us,
mm-hmm.
but the happiness of Sunday should hit us also.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a reminder that we can feel happy and sad at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions, if we don't open ourselves to the emotion of what Jesus did, we are robbing both ourselves and God of what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be emotional.
Yep. And just wrapping all this in to where we are right now with the coronavirus stuff, I think a lot of people are kind of happy and sad right now. And, I think we are maybe, I heard some counselor talk about this, how in seasons like this, where there's just a lot of unknown and, things are changing quickly, we're more prone for our raw emotions to come out a little bit more than usual. And so I think a lot of us are kind of in that happy and sad spot where, like, for me, and I think for you, we're grateful that we still have jobs and we're still getting paid, and we haven't been, our health hasn't been affected. So we're grateful for that. But I miss my friends and I miss doing things I like to do. And I'm a little scared about everything that's happening. So I think we're all weighing, it's interesting. Again, this is interesting that it's happening on Holy Week, is that we're all balancing happy and sad emotions at the same time, probably like Jesus was.
And I'm going through people withdrawal. I call it, I just miss people, but it doesn't hold a candle to the loneliness or the people withdrawal that Jesus faced when everyone abandoned him. So,
yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad we took some time to kind of go through that. We're already over time here. I want to wrap up a little bit. Brent, anything else from Thursday, Friday you want to hit before we wrap up here?
No. Give time to this so that it hits you. It's intended to be that. And often our Maundy Thursday or our Good Friday service around the cross is a very emotional time, and rightly so. We have to feel it. God wants us to feel it.
And, if you're not really sure how to do that, it's not too late. We still have that YouVersion reading plan that walks through this week. So if you'd like to take some time to read this story and get some insight about Holy Week and details of Thursday and Friday, we have that Bible reading plan at firstandmechurch.org/Bible, or you can get to it from the church online page. If you want to carve out some time yet this week still, that'd be a good way to do it. So,
Matt, one more thing I want you to highlight. We are, and you can go back and get these. I've already watched all 7, but we are, we've got them all already, all on the church online page of our website, but there are 7 monologues where people tell the story of from the perspective of one of the characters around Jesus. And they are powerful. They're between 11 and I think 18 minutes or something. But each night at 7, there's a Facebook watch party, I think, but you can access them anytime. And those are good ways to just feel what the story must have been like.
Yeah, it is cool to hear.
I think last night was Judas.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And so but you can catch them all.
Yeah, they are, just to hear kind of like the first person perspective. And I think they're still very biblical. They take all the details out of the Bible, but they have to fill in a little bit of gaps, but that just makes it more real. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed those too. So we've got a couple more Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It goes all the way through Sunday. Those are live at 7 on our Facebook page, or they're actually on the Easter page. If you want to watch them, you can go to firstandmechurch.org/Easter. And you can watch them all there if you prefer to do that. So real quickly here, Brent, Easter is a couple of days away. It's a weird time where we're doing church online. We've said a couple of times that this might be the easiest Easter ever to invite your friends and family. So just one more encouragement. If you're watching today, this is a good time to share that link with people, or do a Facebook watch party or whatever you want to do. But Easter's still happening, and we've still got a great service planned, and we're looking forward to a big day on Sunday. So
he is risen. It's going to be a great day.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, hey, thanks for everybody watching today. We got a few comments. So hi to everybody who's been watching along with us. We're grateful you spent some time with us. And again, for those of you watching or listening later, thanks to you as well. And we hope a bunch of you join us live on Sunday for Easter services, regular 8:30 and 9:45, or you can watch both of them anytime after that. So we're looking forward to a big day on Sunday. Hope a bunch of you join us for those, and then we'll be back here next Thursday as well to continue this conversation. So, Brent, thanks for doing this. Appreciate your time today.
Mutual. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Go wash your hands and Clorox stuff. Bye, everybody.